to the Transportation and Logistics podcast, powered by Atlanta Dispatch and Humblebee Enterprises. I am very excited to be here with a special guest. We have Gerardo Bonell of Drayage.io. And before we begin, I just want to say that the Dispatcher's Guide to the Galaxy is available as an ebook and as a physical book. It's pretty cool. I'm able to send this book out to a few folks who are in the industry in different ways. They are brokers, and I'm excited about sending them the copies just to see how it can affect their operations. One guy is a operations manager specializing in drayage, and the other fellow just opened a freight brokerage, but I think within the first 8 months they've already done six figures. So prayerfully, it brings them some value, maybe even allow them more understanding to what the dispatcher, the independent dispatch agency, does. And also, Lord willing, I will be participating in my very first Peachtree Road Race this year. So that's going to be 4th of July. And as I think about it, I'm very excited. You can do whatever you want to do, but the whole point is just making sure that you're taking advantage of the weather. We're well into Q2, and the weather should be pretty nice most places in the United States. So, I just encourage everybody just to take time for yourself, get outside. And, with that, Gerardo, it made me want to ask you, brother, like, do you ever get a chance to hang out in nature these days? Like, or are you always working?
Well, Jerry, thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. Very excited, definitely. Well, and to answer your question directly, yes, I've been able to get outside since I live in Miami. So, tons of beach days since January, since summer never stops here. It actually gets too warm during the real summer, so we have to go out during quote unquote winter and spring.
Oh no, man, I love that. I love it. And if I lived by a beach, I'd probably be there just as frequently, man, because it does some it's the wind, it's the waves, it's a lot of energy that I feel like you get by being so close to that type of that large body of water. Do you think so as well?
Definitely 100% full of energy.
Yes, sir. Well, look, man. Look, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to have you, and especially because of the product itself, the marketplace that you've created. We're definitely going to get into it. But before we go there, you say that you live in Miami, and I think I saw on your LinkedIn that you lived and worked in a few different countries. Talk about that a little bit. Did you have any favorites? Any countries that you enjoy more than others?
Yeah, definitely. So, I was born and raised in Venezuela, and I spent some time also in Spain, and then I came to the US. I gotta say, well, of course, my home country is fantastic, but right now maybe the political situation is not the best. So, I definitely like turn the page on that and move over. And I gotta say, I love Spain deeply. The food, the culture, and I think it's a fantastic place to be, to visit, and to enjoy. But then you have the States, right? And it's an infinite amount of fantastic opportunities and great, locations, different cities, different vibes. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm able to choose one.
No, I feel it, man. I completely understand. And how did you get into logistics? Is it something that you always wanted to do, or did you just find yourself in logistics?
Well, it was a matter of luck, really. Before getting into logistics, I was working for different startups and around tech and sales, marketing. My background is in business and marketing. I have an MBA. Then I took some studies on computer science and data science. And I was just working for different startups, and then this free broker called me up and said, like, listen, we want to become a tech broker. Like, will you be able to help us out to to structure the company and all of that, do some business analytics around strategy and the business itself. So I started there, like, on a consulting kind of job, and then after I started finding insights on how to grow the business and how to become an efficient broker with the platform they built from the inside, right, in-house. I was offered the operations department, and I've never been in logistics before, so I took this opportunity. This was almost 6 years ago, and really I started learning all about brokerage and the transportation industry, LTL, FTL, drayage, of course, and we were able to grow the operation tenfold in less than a year, mainly driven by Drayage, by the Drayage vertical. But I ended up the days very exhausted, like 200, 300 phone calls, tons of emails, angry customers, and very stressful kind of day. And I was frustrated because the only way I saw that we were going to be able to scale the Drayage vertical was by hiring more people and more people, and it's more phone calls and emails, and it's really complicated, right? So, but what really caught my attention is that trucking companies didn't have the tools or a way to really calculate their capacity, their idle capacity, and also estimate how much it's going to actually cost for them to move a container, beyond just fuel, tolls, and driver payment. There's more to it in a drayage operation. You have a yard, you probably have a chassis too, you have an office, you have the back office, so tons of things going into it, and it's really hard for a trucking company to amass all that knowledge and transform it into a simple number and then estimate a cost, right, for it. So that was my main theory on what was the biggest problem with drayage. It is that trucking companies doesn't have the right tools to operate better their business, and they're doing the best they can with what they have. So I embarked this journey of talking with the owners of the trucking companies, learning about their business, and there was a trucking company that actually was very interested in my approach, and we started creating an MVP of a software that was able to calculate the capacity and the cost of the operation, and we started acting more like a operation service that
Mm-hmm.
uses the software for being more efficient. So we were able to double the size of that trucking company in less than a year, and it was amazing. But it started creating a lot of friction. Of course, people was afraid of losing their jobs and all of that, and that's really not my spirit. So I decided it was the wrong take on the solution. And what we did is wrap those algorithms of capacity and pricing into a TMS. So that's how we started, really. This was like 4.5 years ago.
Gotcha. So 4.5 years ago, you say that you got started by coming up with a solution on how drayage companies could come up with a very, very robust way, a consistent way of providing a pricing for whatever lanes they were being offered, as well as a TMS system that really catered to the trucking companies. Did I get that right?
You got that right, 100%.
Okay, cool. So look, that takes us to Drain.io today. What is the main offering that you guys have? Like what's the buzz about it? How are you selling it to folks when you're, having those sales calls?
Yeah, well, we have. pivoted a couple of times and iterated a lot. So almost 2 years ago, we decided to change the focus of the company towards the shipper, right? This can mean the broker, freight forwarder, or BCO, because it was very hard to sell carrier TMS. It's a crowded space, very competitive, and there's also always, the fear of change, right? Like if you have your own business, you have your trucking company, you're doing, $2-3 million a year, you don't really want to change things, right? You don't really want to shake the tree and now make people to learn a new software to try to change things around. So it's a totally valid argument, right? So we changed the offering towards a shipper, and our main offering today is the shipper platform, which is a whole solution, web-based, cloud-based. It's a SaaS, a service as a software, that helps brokers, forwarders, and DCOs to optimize the drayage process. Everything from the order entry or just connecting with their ERPs up to auditing the invoice from the carrier. So it's a whole platform, and basically what we allow them to do better is to have capacity management over the carriers that they're using frequently, understand the rate agreements that they have with these carriers or the rates that they have with these carriers, if those rates are, some sort of fair, or they are, good or bad. So the rate negotiation is it's kind of problematic in Drayage, I believe, because nobody has the truth in their hands, right? So everyone is trying to understand, like, what's the market rate, and the only way you get that is by knowing the rates of other carriers that are servicing the same customer and or the same lane, and that really gets confusing, right? And it's not always right. So I think that's one of the biggest problem on both sides. It's a blind process, and everyone is trying to get the best outcome. So that's why you have all these accessorial charges that are, different across companies, and we believe that that is something we can help to solve on both sides.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And how long have you guys been live with the version that is being catered towards the shipper, the broker, the freight forwarder, the VCO? How long has that been live?
So we we started building that a couple of years ago. Um, we got our first customer early on. It's been live for over a year and a half, but it requires a lot of work. It has required, like refining the vision and how the platform operates. We are 100% software solution. We are not a broker. We don't pretend or intend to be a broker. And really, it's also a matter of how to sell this, how to, show these forwarders and brokers and BCOs that they can save money if they have control over the drayage process and it's not email based, phone call based, because that definitely leads into first repetitive tasks that they have to do over and over and over. The same on the carrier side, right? And it's not the best use of time of everyone. And then that leads into errors, and errors are costful, and they cost money, but they also sometimes cost relationships, and fostering those relationships between shippers and carriers are, one of the most precious things in the drayage operation, because when you have a real urgency, you gotta really to lean on those relationships to get out of the hole, basically.
Yeah, man, you said something right there. You said that errors can actually they can cost you the whole relationship. I think that's huge. I mean, especially in my role as a dispatch company owner, I can see how service failures can really
Definitely.
ruin opportunities, future opportunities, things that you even probably worked hard to get established. How one service failure can really destroy a relationship. And no, that is very huge. And you also mentioned something else that makes me interest. It makes me want to go a little bit further into it. You say that you do not have any intention on becoming a brokerage, but I gotta
Correct.
ask you, brother, how can how are we doing this in this market? When you're putting a carrier, a motor carrier who is going to be providing the transportation services with a shipper or a freight forwarder who technically can be considered, those two, a shipper or a freight forwarder. Most of the time, a broker is required to have an authority to facilitate that type of interchange. How are you able to do this without needing to get a brokerage authority?
Yeah, great question. So we have two modules or two products on the platform, right? So the first is a shipper platform. They allow to bring their own carriers, interact with them on an email basis, or invite them to the portal. And I mean, there's no transaction in between other than the one already established, right? So that's business as usual. We just digitize the process. Then we have what we call the marketplace. It's not really a marketplace, it's more like a sales platform for carriers. And what really happens there is that when the carrier signs up, and this is something that we're going to launch on Q3. Right now, we're doing some tests behind the doors and getting good results. So we're making sure that everything works properly. But what we do there is when the carrier signs up, we ask them a few data points about their company, like yard locations, terminals they work with, amount of trucks, if they have any chassis, and also how competitive they want to be in the market, and also what's their capacity offering to that market, right? So with those data points, what we do is we put the trucking company into the port terminals that they claim they work, and we have a proprietary inland port congestion algorithm that allows to estimate how busy is going to be that port. So we start learning from that port, like how busy are the trucking companies, and if the carrier opens up to the next level, like sharing their logins for the gate movements, for example, in the terminal website. Also, they have the ability to share their GPS and their TMS. We are doing integrations with carrier TMSs. With that data, we can really predict their capacity up to 7 days ahead and offer loads that are very convenient. So the way it works is that we are reading the carrier's capacity and we have an estimation of their costs. And what we do is we offer this carrier to the shippers in the platform. But for the shipper to actually work with the carrier, they have to approve the carrier. So they have to vet the carrier, like in any carrier onboarding process that they do on a daily basis. What we just do is facilitate that by showing the carrier's information on our platform. And it's the broker or the forwarder that decides if they want to add that carrier to the marketplace network. So what happens from there is that we reveal both faces and they can start working together. That's basically what we're doing on the quote unquote marketplace.
Gotcha. So the value add for a shipper or a freight forwarder or a VCO would be the fact that you are bringing capacity and you're putting in such a way where they could readily vet to say whether or not they want to work with the given carrier. Is that correct? And if so, am I missing any other value adds for a VCO to be going through your platform versus going through what would be considered like the norm of freight brokerage?
Yeah, no, that's correct. So what we do with carriers is, besides exposing them, also we we set a price for the move on behalf of the carrier based on all the information we have, and we show also the idle capacity of that carrier. So what happens is when the broker or the forwarder or BCO selects that carrier, that goes as a tendering offer to the carrier, and the carrier can accept or decline. And we learn, the algorithm learns as those offers come. If they get rejected or accepted, it self adjusts, and then the pricing becomes better and better. So that's on the first part of the question. The second part of the question, like why a BCO will go directly to the carrier instead of a broker, or vice versa, really. Why do they still go to a freight broker instead of the carriers through the marketplace? And the reality is two things. And this is why also we are creating a broker marketplace. The BCOs and forwarders, sometimes they don't have the grip on the operation, or they don't have the department on the operation side to deal with the drayage portion of the trade of the international trade. And first of all, they rather rely on one party that is liable for everything. So if they deal directly with carriers, of course there's some complexity on that end, even though, yeah, fantastic. The platform is providing instant pricing and capacity on behalf of those carriers that they just created a relationship. But this way, with the brokers, they have a level of service that probably, it's more robust than what a carrier can offer. So, brokers have, tons of people working on customer service, and at the same time, they can service the whole territory, the whole US with one operation. And that really is an added value for the shipper. So we are not trying to cut brokers off the deal. It's just the shipper's preference if they want to use a broker or a carrier. What we are just doing is adding more carriers to their network, really.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. And I guess on the flip side of that, what's the value add for a carrier to sign up, for the platform and go through the marketplace instead of going through, um, a traditional broker? And when you're answering that too, what's the is there an upfront cost for a carrier to join the market?
Great. So yeah. So $0 upfront, zero cost to the carrier, is totally free to join. The real advantage of the carriers joining is that they have a 24/7 automatic and digital sales platform offering their capacity all over, right? It's like a loads magnet, basically. So they are exposed to more shippers, they're exposed to more brokers, and the real problem when sourcing capacity is that as a shipper, you have to call the carrier, try to establish a conversation with the owner or with manager or the dispatcher that has the authority to set prices, and to really convey around some sort of capacity agreement, like, yeah, we can move 10 containers a week for that lane, that's fine, just send the DO, whatever. But also there's some friction in that first DO that comes over, right? Like, can you pay in advance, or COD? And then these two entities start to build up this relationship. Truth is that it's very time expensive, and sometimes it's complicated to really, if you are moving containers in a port area, to really survey all the trucking companies in that port area, to try to get rates from all of them, to try to get capacity from all of them. And this really what ends up doing is that the shippers, the brokers, forwarders, etc., they usually tend to work with a small group of carriers in each port area. They have their preferred carrier, 2, 3, 4, 5 more, and that's it. That's it. That's their carrier base, and they might be missing 90% of all the carriers in that area. What happens is that maybe they need to move certain type of lane and container that does not match the carriers they work with, and it's very convenient for a carrier that is outside of their network, let's say, and they don't have the ability to find this, and the carrier doesn't have the ability to say, hey, I'm here, this load is very convenient for me, just send it to me, I'll give you a better price, I'll give you a better deal, or I have capacity, for instance, for that type of move, while your common carriers, they might say, no, I don't have capacity. And it's not really they don't have capacity, it's really that it's not convenient for an operation to move that container because it's a total mismatch, right? It comes from a different terminal. It's maybe a reefer or, whatever type of deal that is not convenient. And the common response is, no, we don't have capacity. But that doesn't mean you don't have capacity for maybe a 20 footer that you can do a street turn with, right? So those are the type of things that we believe can really change the game for both parties. Is really have more exposure and being able to tender the loads to the carrier when it's convenient to the carrier. And that's why also the platform sets the prices on behalf of the carrier, to have that ability to adjust based on capacity, based on port congestion, fuel prices, and the convenience of the load.
Gotcha. Look, I had a question that came in from one of our listeners, and I wanted to see if we can go into it a little bit more when it comes to the vetting process of a carrier. That whole situation that you said that the the VCO, or the freight forwarder, or the shipper, they would be
Mm-hmm.
able to see this carrier. What type of vetting is being done? Is it on the same? Is it on par with what a freight brokerage would be doing when they're vetting a carrier when that carrier wants to get onboarded?
So we don't take part in the vetting process. We only show information, DOT information of the carrier. So anything that is publicly available, we do show a rating for the carrier based on past loads with other shippers in the platform. And you as a broker, you really have to do that vetting process. So we don't show any additional information that is not publicly available. So all brokers have their own vetting process, and we don't really want to take play into that portion, because that will mean that we are like somehow
Liable.
liable, right? So, yeah, I mean, we are not going to do that. We can show you statistics about that carrier in our platform, but that's it. If you add that carrier to your network, it's on you for doing so. Um, so yeah, that's how we do it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, look, appreciate that question, young lady. And as far as the carrier, how does the carrier get paid? You say that you are not a broker. Most time, a carrier who is completing a move, a dray move, or even if this was driving, they're expecting to get paid from somebody. And if
Yeah.
you're not the broker, how do they get paid? And not on those super long payment terms that a normal shipper, manufacturer would take. That's 30 plus days, net 60 and sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Great question. So, what we do is we have a factoring company who's a partner, and all loads of the marketplace goes through that factoring company. So, what actually happens to the carrier is that now they get paid as soon as the shipper approves the invoice, and we're talking, like fast pace. So instead of being 30 days, let's say the shipper takes 3-4 days to approve the invoice, they still get 30 days to pay to the factoring. So it's basically we are taking away that uncertainty in new relationships, because these factoring companies, they're like um, guaranteeing the payments, basically.
Okay, yeah, no, I love that. Because I was thinking like you got to find some type of way to handle a carrier getting paid, and just like the FMCSA said in their guidelines on dispatchers back in November 2022, they say a dispatcher cannot. I mean, and folks, the reason why I'm saying dispatcher because that's essentially the service that is being digitized and automated is the process of matching up, carrier capacity with freight opportunities that need to get moved, and you don't have a MC authority. So, that's kind of the bread and butter of an independent dispatch agency.
Yeah.
So going into that, uh, they said that a dispatch agency cannot be in between on the money, can't touch the money, can't give it to the carrier. They have to get paid from the carrier, on the back end of things. So I think that is, just very, very wise that you are having a factoring company partner that is helping to facilitate this whole thing. And you mentioned one of the value adds to the shippers, to the VCOs, is the fact that you're able to provide them a rate. If based off of those preset questions that you ask to the carriers, and then that algorithm that's tying in all the other carriers that run those same, type of lanes. And eventually it gets boiled down to if that carrier is approved by the shipper, VCO, freight forwarder, that means that
Hmm.
they get pushed a notification, maybe even an email, that there is an opportunity, and they can just accept it now. They can just click this one singular button, and they can, get the opportunity. And to that, I have a question.
Yeah.
Let's say that container is a 40-foot high cube container, right?
Hmm.
And it is significantly overweight. Like, uh, what if they feel like the rate doesn't fit? Maybe the rate is okay, but maybe because it's so heavy, instead of a rental fee for a standard chassis, they would need additional bucks to get a triaxle chassis. Is there a way for there to be some type of negotiating in that book now button, or is it you take it or you leave it?
Yeah. So as we see it, there's no negotiation room, since we're taking all the factors into the price, and what will happen is that the algorithm starts learning and adjusting the price. So if you're a carrier and you reject that load, then we learn. Of course, it's always a matter of price, right? Almost always, and then we start learning and adjusting that price. So the reason why we don't want to open the negotiation part is because it really uh, plays against the automation process, which is really what helps the shipper to solve their problems. And we really need to be on top of that. So also, as a carrier, you can adjust how uh, competitive you want to be in the market. That translate into what's your desired markup, and you can have 30% markup as desired markup, and we'll cater the price to that. So it's really a matter of adjusting the prices. So I wanted to mention also one important thing. After our discussion we had a couple of months ago initially, and we're prepping for building a dispatcher agency feature for the marketplace. So carriers can assign this agency for being the one putting them on the marketplace. Okay, so they can assign certain capacity to Atlanta Dispatch, let's say, And that way, what we do is we do a rev share with the agency. So it's a way to automate the process for dispatchers as well, and not, of course, not all the loads are going to go through the digital way. That's an utopia. That's really, it's what the mind automatically goes to, like, oh well, this is going to be the ideal solution. In reality, in practice, is that it's very hard that it happens, right? So um, the same with the brokers piece. There's a reason why in more tech advanced markets like FTL, or tech advanced verticals like FTL, all players still playing, right? Nobody's out of business due to technology, and it's because this is a very complex problem. And what we are trying as Trading.io is really to include everyone in the process.
And yeah, no, I hear you, brother. And I think that is a huge space for mutual growth because there are a lot of independent dispatch agencies
Yeah,
who would be very, very interested in partnering up, becoming one of those folks that are driving carriers to the platform, to the marketplace,
exactly.
and in order for them to feel some type of mutual benefit, some reciprocity, uh, being able to automate, some type of payment does seem like it'd be cool. Now, one of the things that I will mention, which is also probably one of the reasons why I had to really stop getting paid directly from the factoring companies of my of my carrier, is because, just like you said, not all load. I mean, I'm the type of my agency does not force somebody to take every load, and if there
Right.
is a load or there are freight opportunities that they find themselves, I applaud them. Say, hey, that's a great job. Take it. Let me know when you're available, and we'll pick it up from there. And so like you said, that is one point that would have to be noted, is which opportunities are
Yep.
going to be credited to the dispatch agency versus what did the carrier find themselves. But no, that's a huge value add for your platform and for the industry as a whole. Um, I wanted to ask, when it comes down to it, what's everything behind that book now feature? Because this is kind of like a complex question, right? I mean, especially because I know that this is still in testing, so I kind of feel bad that I'm asking you, but I'm asking. All right, so look, just trying to get to the nitty gritty. We just said that the whole point is that the algorithm is supposed to learn, right? So
Yep.
the carrier says, nope, can't do it. I can't even book this. And let's just say it's a it instead of the book now, it's a decline. I can't do it.
Yep.
You have very caring and considerate carriers that are going to do that immediately, and then
Exactly.
it gets pushed to the next carrier. They say no. It gets pushed to the next one. At what point do you feel like in the design is the algorithm going to pick up the fact that people are not interested, and relate that back to what the book now rate was,
Yep.
before that rate is actually reconsidered and then reapproved by the shipper, VCO, or freight forwarder?
Yeah. So great question. The pricing adjusts. So it's all about creating a benchmark, right? So when you have a process, so let's say out of 10 loads, we learned that the price estimate is running with the cost variable at X ratio, and and then with X port congestion and Y fuel price and all of that. So what happens is that that markup that has the carrier also impacts, right? So what happens is that we consider, okay, carrier A was the cheapest option, they had a low margin, or many variables. So it's very hard for me to explain how
Yeah,
those that
I
work
know.
exactly. But really, what happens is that if 100 loads go, and we learn where is the comfort zone with all those variables in place, and then there's one load that is not really fitting into the model, that means there's something odd with that load. There's something different, and sometimes it will require like a manual revision. Sometimes it will self adjust because maybe it's the weight, as you said, right? And maybe we are trying to balance like how much money a triaxle will be for a carrier, right? And that really what happens is that the loop can be very fast. So if the shipper has automatic dispatching enabled, automatic tendering enabled, it will go like a cascade, right? And then we'll loop again with higher prices, and until a carrier accepts. The trick is that you as a carrier, if you decline the first time, you don't know if that load is going to come back to you.
Okay. Okay.
So it could come back to you, but you don't really know. So if it's something that really is good for you, you should take it. And that's the balancing act that we're trying to create, because I learned in my days as a quote unquote a carrier dispatcher, carrier operator, is that it's not really about making a lot of money on a one-off deal. It's about filling your capacity consistently with matching loads, with convenient loads. So if you always have a container to do a double move, to do a drop and pick, to potentially street turn, the more street turns, the better. Um, your operation will grow. But if you have slow days, and and if there's a carrier out there, that person might be saying, this guy is nuts. Of course, we're going to have slow days and peak days, but the reality is that that's precisely what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to help to fill those slow days, and later on the pipeline, we will issue tools for the carriers to really manage their capacity better, because the reality is that this happens because of a small array of factors. It's the vessel schedules, it's the terminal's operations, weather, a fuel spike, or a sudden drop on the international trade. But all of these factors can be predicted with a couple of weeks in advance. That will help you manage your capacity better. But for now, we are helping you to get out of the slow days and getting loads that are actually convenient for you at a price that makes you a profit. And that's what we are trying to do: help carriers to sell their idle capacity at a price that makes a profit.
Right, right, right. And look, you mentioned something, right? You mentioned something that, as I know it, is kind of like a needle in a haystack. The
Mhm.
idea, the concept, the notion of a street turn. Um, is that something that you feel like the marketplace will kind of highlight those opportunities when they are available? Because as I know it, they're kind of like I
Elusive.
said, needles in a haystack.
Yeah, so that's why we ask the carriers to share their port terminal logins and potentially their GPS, their TMS data. So some TMSs, we're talking with the biggest TMSs right now on the carrier side, and we're looking to partnerships there in order to have us as an extension or add-on that the carrier can enable. And with that, what we're doing is creating blind data. What means blind data? We don't know who your customer is. We don't know how much you're charging that customer. We don't know the delivery address. We just know is a 20-footer CMA out of this port or out of this terminal going to that zip code. import, export. That's it. That's all we know. And that helped us to find the matches, right? So since we have the shippers using our platform, we have all the loads that they're going to move in our platform. We can anticipate those street turn movements. We can even do bundles in advance and offer them as a street turn already, even though, of course, upon approval of the shipping line, right? That's always tricky, but um, that's the idea, to offer convenient loads so you have your capacity busy with efficient moves, and not with a move that you have to do dry miles, empty miles, to match up with the next one for the driver, because that doesn't make anyone happy. That doesn't make the drivers happy. That doesn't make the owners happy. When yeah, pull this container off the terminal, you drop it, and then you have nothing to pick in that area, and you have to drive 100 miles back to the yard to pick a taxi and into the port. For the driver, that's the end of the day, right? They pull the second container to the yard, and that's it. The day ends, and that's the truth. So balancing the portfolio of loads is our goals, and we only can do that if we have the data to help.
Right, right, right. Do you feel like a carrier has an opportunity to find dedicated freight using your platform? And I ask that because we all know that's the goal. Ultimately,
Right.
you want to get away from the load board. You want to, find a freight source and really, pour into it and be your best self as a carrier to get dedicated opportunities. Do you foresee anything like that utilizing your platform?
Yeah. The market is shifting a lot, and these 1 year type of contracts, they're really, maybe not the ideal solution. So what we're looking into is creating short-term contracts, like a 1 month, 2 month contract uh, for a fixed price, and not only doing that, but if you have that lane, to find you a second contract that matches that lane, right? So balancing import exports maybe is from shippers that have their warehouses in the same zip code. So the amount of drop and picks increments. So trying to do that is to help the carrier to build this portfolio of cost of loads that are in how do you say this, like in symphony. So like they play well together. It's very difficult when you're a carrier and you probably have excess of capacity because you lost a customer, or a customer went out of business, or they haven't been paying and you stop servicing them, and now you have a void in your capacity and you want to fill it out, and then the next customer that calls up is moving scrap metal out of a location that is 300 miles away, and it's exports, and you don't really have anything that matches up with that type of move. So what you try to do is compensate with a higher price, and sometimes that doesn't play well, because even if the shipper says yes, then your drivers are getting impacted by that decision, because they will be able to do less legs, less trips in a day. So yes, I do foresee being able to offer these short term contracts in the future.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Um, as far as a dispatcher and as far as a carrier, what does the process look like of getting them onboarded? Like, what would they need to do if somebody was listening to our conversation right now and they were like, you know what, I think that I do want to be a part of this. How would they go about getting onboarded? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we are of course refining the onboarding process, but it can be done totally online, digitally. It's a few steps, and there's just some terms of service, of course. But like if you're signing up to any other web platform nowadays, so you put the information of your company, uh, you share the port terminal logins. Well, first you tell us in which terminals you operate, of course, and then we ask for the logins in case those terminals have a website. Uh, and then we ask if you want to share, if you want to sync your GPS. I know this is very tricky on Drayage, so we're trying to look for a different solution because GPSs are generally tied with an ELD, and in Drayage, it's kind of complicated. Also, there's a gray area there. Um, so we're trying to overcome that just for GPS only, independent from the ELD provider. But if you allow access to that, we'll be able in the future to read your truck's locations and understand, okay, they are going to go out of that terminal without any containers. They're going to go out in chassis. So there's a spot opportunity there. And lastly, besides the GPS, when we have the TMS integrations available, you'll be able to share that too. After you do the sign up process, you just create the users, and you can start using the platform. And what really you have to do is wait for the loads to come in. Um, so of course nobody's going to have that window open in their computer waiting for something to happen. We have a whole email notification system. So you receive an email, it has the accept button, decline button. You receive all the information in that email for the tendering process, and then as you service that load, uh, you will have to update the platform, but it really is giving visibility to the customer right away. So you don't really have to start writing emails or taking phone calls or making phone calls. It's just as if you update that portal, the trucker portal, on a timely manner, it runs smoothly. Everyone is happy, and you're going to get more and more loads.
Gotcha. So, if people wanted to move forward like today, what's the where? How do they contact you? What do they do to actually say, "Sign me up, brother"?
Yeah, so in our website, draying.io, as the company name, um, we do have a form that you can fill out for us to to take to put you in the waiting list, because we are releasing this sales platform in Q3. So right now we're prepping. We want to have everything smooth out, to have the TMS integrations, and to be able to really not disappoint the people that comes over. I think you only can get a couple of chances with people, right? So you must do it right. Um, and that's the spirit right now. So um, you can go to the bottom side of the website, name, last name, email, company name, and actually I'm seeing that I don't have that enabled for carriers right now, but if you allow me just a couple of minutes, I'll do. And that way, because I was not planning to start taking like a line of potential carriers in today, but more than happy to do so, so I can keep you posted on the progress.
Good. And as far as a shipper, VCO, freight forwarder, broker, do they have the ability to go to the same site and get onboarded that way, or is it more of a you guys have a onboarding call and you move that way? So is that functionality there for somebody that wanted to be there who has the freight to move?
Yeah, so right now for the shipper side, they can sign up from the website, and it says sign up for free. Sign up now for free. They can do that. They can enroll, and then there's only one plan right now in the onboarding process. But if you register partially, we'll contact you out and work out the pricing thing. That's part of the work that we're doing right now on the platform is enabling it to new customers to come on board, because all the sales that we have been doing are like video calls and meetings, etc., like the old way. And we definitely understand that that's a way to do business with corporations, but we're also trying to cater to all those mom and pop companies to be able to use the service. So we're going to launch a free plan that allows you to use up to 50 containers a month, and that's coming in a couple of weeks. So any broker, forwarder, or BCO can sign up for free, start using the platform for free, and of course, when we launch the marketplace, they can use it. So we're trying really to cater to all size of companies, because we solely believe this is a big problem that impacts not only the businesses that are involved in the drayage process, but it also impacts the economy with inefficiencies like this. The cost of goods goes up. More fuel is spent, more pollution, and it's really not ideal for anything, right? So we really want to help to solve the drayage problem as a whole.
Gotcha. Well, look, man, that's basically everything I had. Because I feel like I could talk to you about this ins and outs, because that's where my industry is drayage. I talk about
Yeah,
this all day. But quick, let me ask this: as
likewise.
far as you're in Miami, and I heard that Miami is like a crazy tech hub. Would you agree with that? Is there anything that you feel like? Are there resources that you're getting that are being aided to you just for being in Miami? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been growing a lot in the past. I will say 7, 8 years. It's very impressive to see the amount of people moving in, startups, investors, all across different sectors. I wouldn't say it's really a logistics hub, even though there are a few groups that we get together, once in a while, and there are some events. There's people really pushing this forward, pushing the logistics tech forward in Miami. But I I think lately it's more towards crypto and different verticals. So it's really spread. I will say, like, for instance, Chattanooga uh, can be considered a real tech hub for logistics. It's super exciting, uh, and yeah, I'm happy that Miami is growing a lot. Definitely, it's been super helpful to learn from others, to create more relationships. It feels very very good.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. Is there anything that you wanted to say
Likewise, man.
before we closed out?
Well, just to thank you and all the people listening. This is actually the first interview I do, the first podcast or interview I do. So I really appreciate the time and the space and the patience. Of course. So really grateful for this and happy to to get to know everybody else, and super thankful for getting to know you, Yuri. It's been great. I think our conversations are amazing, and I learn a lot from that. So just super happy to be here.
Yeah, brother. Well, look, it's definitely a pleasure to be here to highlight your platform. Definitely happy to rehash this conversation as those different service offerings come together. I can completely understand how, the market and just a growing customer base can, push you to get different service offerings out there. So as those things come together, definitely happy to highlight those as well. Yeah, so appreciate you coming
Thank you
on.
so much.
Yeah, no doubt. Everybody, appreciate the support. Tune in on Monday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, as we're going to be hanging out with Freightway Sonar Team, let you know where you should position your trucks to take advantage of the market. And next week, out of nowhere, every manufacturer, every shipper wants to have visibility over their product every second. This is one of the players who's really thriving in that market. And so I'm looking forward to highlighting them next week. If there's anything that you guys kind of want to hear about, let me know. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can contact me directly. You can do a whole bunch of stuff to stay involved and to, just grow your footprint with the transportation and logistics community. So, yeah, just holler at me. But again, Gerard, very appreciative of you joining. Everybody have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.